Hello, I am Tobias Silver, the Sump Addict, and this appealing hole in the ground is Ogof, Pont, Meirw. Now, this is not a particularly big cave. It's what's usually referred to as a diver's cave because there's not much in it for the dry cavers to see. And as you can see, it is rather tight. This is the entrance squeeze, which is pretty much exactly the size of my tackle bag. And this made moving the bottles to the sump quite challenging, and it's why I'm showing you it. The other reason I'm showing you it is because there's not a huge amount of diving footage, but we'll get to there later. The cave itself, the dry cave before the sump, there is a fairly intimidating squeeze to squeeze yourself through. That was that bit I showed you earlier. And then there is this boulder choke that is really quite difficult. Now I'm doing this with Daisy, who will show up on this channel a fair amount more. She's helping me carry all my bottles. And we are almost at the sump base at this point. This is just pushing stuff through the boulder choke before it. And despite this only being about 32 meters of dry cave, it took us over an hour to move all of the bottles. So here's the sump. It starts with this lovely little downward rift and this little keyhole in the side, which you kind of can see that it's a little silty, but you haven't seen anything yet. So as you pop into this kind of keyhole into a cross rift, you can see the bottom composition is just sand, and there's this kind of rifty thing in the ceiling that I'm going to be following with my head. Now, this cave, no one has been in for about, since the 90s. The last person in there was P. Fowler and Martin Farr. And unfortunately, P. Fowler passed away on that dive. And you're about to see why this dive was bad. Because despite having this beautifully gin clear visibility, it's only been about 40 seconds into the dive, and we can see the visibility has already become nothing. Now, the rest of this footage for this dive, there is 2 dives in this, they're both short, is going to be various shades of black and beige, so I will kind of discuss what we do in this scenario, so that it's not just, slightly trippy colours on the screen. You do actually get some context. Now, when we are blind, we have to use our hands to feel for stuff. So obviously we have one hand on the line. If we don't, by the time we get blind, we have to go find it because it is our way home. But at this point in time, I was holding the line the whole dive. I could see the silty bottom when I got there, so I just kind of decided that it would be a good idea to just hold the line and keep going without letting go of it. So as I'm doing this, I've got my hand, kind of my right hand on the line, and the left hand feeling around. So I'm currently feeling the ceiling for this one because I know it's quite low, and I'm trying to find another rift in the ceiling. Now I don't seem to find another rift from where I was looking, so I kind of wiggle a bit, wiggle back, and about this point is when I decided that I'm not in the right rift, I'm not making progress. I'm going to pop out, have a look at my gas, see how much I used, and then make a decision what to do. So I've decided to turn around. I grab hold of the line, I pull it tight in the other direction because it's a little bit loose, and then I basically wiggle backwards, pull, and then follow the line back. It's fairly simple in terms of complexity, but it is definitely quite nerve-wracking. Obviously, when you can't see, it's very disorientating. And as anyone who's done cave training will be able to tell you, the moment that you can't see anything, you have no reference for distance, it can be quite nerve-wracking. But I was fairly relaxed on this. I had a pair of 7s in this dive, and that's plenty of gas for something that is, fairly shallow. I say I just came from the surface, went down probably about 3 to 4 meters, and then came to a horizontal flat bedding plane. So it's probably unlikely to be any deeper than 3-4 meters. Now I'm kind of working my way back. I'm feeling with my feet as we go, and I feel the little keyhole that I went through on the way in. So I'm kind of pulling myself up, I'm back into the rift, and then I pull myself up the rift. I'm not wearing a wing and fins for this dive because of how narrow it is. And I have a short little conversation with Daisy about the dive.
Well, that was f***ing shit. It's a f***ing sandy bottom and only about me thick. I'm going to give it another go, but I don't think it's going. No, or at least the bit that is going is just not feasible. Yeah, I'll give it another go and we'll see. I just can't see shit at the moment, so I'm just doing it by feel. I mean, at least I've got loads and loads and loads and loads of gas.
So once more, I go back into the fray, and I put my head under, and unsurprisingly, the visibility is worse. I was kind of half hoping that the upstream water that we're kind of diving into would have pushed some of the silt out, but apparently not. So down we go again. I'm feeling my way back into that little keyhole and then into the rift. And this footage is going to be fairly boring for a decent while because I do have a longer second dive. So what I'll do is I'm going to talk about this, and you can see kind of just how enthralling this kind of diving is. It's very disorientating, very tricky, and you need to be very steadfast on kind of where your time's in your head. And there's a couple things to talk about really, really low visibility diving, based on a couple of realities. So I can't see a thing. I have about the same view as you do. I've actually, since my mainstream video, moved my video lights, so they're in a position where I get the better visibility and the camera gets the worse, but to be honest, from doing this dive, this is pretty equivalent to what I could see. So in this dive, I do actually find a different rift and follow it, and it is a much better rift. It's actually where the line comes from, and I now know roughly where to go to get to the kind of out of the silt bank. And one of the things about low visibility diving here is that I can't read my gauges or my dive computer, so I don't know how long I've been, and I don't know how much gas I have. Now there are a couple ways around this. You can have a internal timer in your head, i.e. count, and so say swap gases at 10 minutes in. You can work this out with gas calcs, roughly how long you get between each kind of sixth at a maximum depth. You're obviously a little bit more conservative as well because of the conditions, and you kind of go in, and you can see here I'm chasing this gin here, so I'm getting into bits I've not get to before, and I'm just chasing this, following this line, but I am not fast enough to catch up with the viz, and I am stuck in this fight for clear visibility. Now, because you can't check your gauges and you can't check your dive computer, obviously, this means you need to be strategic with how you're going to dive, and you need to either be very conservative, like I'm going to be on this dive, and turn when I've done about 10 minutes and that's it, or you have a time-telling device that's able to give you physical feedback, something like a kind of electronic watch that is able to buzz. If you're able to set a 10-minute timer and just get it to buzz within 10 minutes, then you know that is your time to swap regulators and to continue on, and then another buzz in 10 minutes for when to turn around, and then another buzz in 10 minutes for when to swap your regulators back again, and you could do it that way. Now, I do plan to eventually return to this sump, though there are plenty of reasons not to. The carry is one of them, and the other reason is that this silt is industrial waste from a bridge that's directly above it when there was construction, and it has caused me to come out in some quite dramatic amount of hives, which is unideal after a dive. We have potential plans to take a submersible pump in there and try and pump out the silt, though that will be a very long-term project, so it's kind of been shunted down on the list of priorities. But that being said, I have found a potential way on, and I think if I was to do this dive again, I would have a little watch that had the kind of physical feedback on the timings, so that I could do it with a pair of full 7s, work out given that the max depth is below 10 meters, be able to work out my breathing rate and get a rough idea of when to turn around. Be very conservative, as I may use a lot more energy and a lot more gas than expected, and give it another go. As I said, like, there are plenty of reasons to shunt this down the list of priorities, and so it has been shunted down the list of priorities, and I probably won't be back anytime in the kind of immediate future, especially because one of the things I enjoy with cave diving is the ability to see what I'm doing, and as you can see right now, this footage is very minimal. It's mostly just audio and talking, though you do get the odd specks of brown. This dive was a little bit longer, and as I kind of continue on, I managed to find this little rifty bit, which I think is where I've just entered now, because the visibility became, not black. When the visibility is black, that means that the visibility is so bad that the torches that are either side of my helmet that are outputting a couple thousand lumen each aren't able to penetrate it. There we go, yeah, I've definitely found the rift now. The camera's rubbing on the ceiling. So, as I kind of headed up this rift, there was a little bit more space, so I didn't plough into the silt as much as I was moving, and that kind of allowed for a little bit better, if not still not usable, visibility. The black can be quite, anxiety inducing, because obviously that means that the silt is really, really bad. Whereas when it's kind of shades of brown and you get tiny little views of wall when you're near it, that can be quite, reassuring after a bunch of just nothing. Though I do remember coming out of this dive being able to see and having to blink as the lights kind of took over my vision, because I just got kind of used to it. This is a very difficult dive, I think, and mainly because it's a dive by feel. Now, some of the other UK cave divers will go, well, this is every dive, isn't it? And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of. But, there are plenty of sumps in the UK that have okay visibility. So, a metre or two. And you can kind of feel your way through them if you have to. But you can see the line, you can see your hands, you can see your gauges. No, this is properly bad visibility, and it is definitely a significant thing to dive in things like this. Now, obviously, we've all been. I've been trained through a TDI route, so I did my cave training, and I spent a lot of time with the blindfold on, and that does help with kind of staying confident in these kind of scenarios. But then on top of that, you're kind of looking at the kind of blackness around you, and you are feeling the cave, and that can kind of be weirdly meditating. You are focusing quite hard, and I think I do quite enjoy the focusing aspect of cave diving. You do need to have what I refer to as enforced focus. So at this point I've almost certainly turned around now, because I'm back into the black, so I'm moving back through all the silt, and I am nearly out. So we'll quickly touch on the previous dives in this sump. So this was one of Martin Farr's projects. Martin Farr is fairly legendary in terms of cave diving. I would highly recommend his book That's Darkness Beckons, if not just to hear how many of his friends couldn't manage what he was doing. But he was absolutely astounding cave explorer and cave diver. He is one of the few people who has a sump named after them. That's Farr Sump in Peak Cavern. And that was because he was the only person who could get through it for quite a while. Now I'm kind of coming up that rift, so I'm going to surface and have another conversation with Daisy, hopefully more tame this time.
I mean, I got quite a bit further that time. Not quite. Well, yes, I did, but I didn't continue on past it. So I found a little rift in the ceiling, stuck in that rift across, following the line. And then I got up into a rift on the way up that was quite tight, and that's where I decided it probably wasn't worth going any further. I mean, quite literally, my entire view was just shades of beige and black. No, I'm not, but I don't think being small would help there. I think it's just the bottom composition. I think no matter how small you are, you're basically ploughing through sand. Well, I mean, this is the joys of UK, isn't it? Yeah, it's good anyway. What time is it? Yeah, so only a 15 minutes of diving.
And we're back out again. So we're moving the bottles back through that boulder choke. We actually elected to move them individually because moving them in the bag was just too much work. So one bottle that I was moving by itself, and the other bottle was in the bag, which Daisy was moving. Now we're making significant pace because we set a call out and we were maybe not conservative enough with the amount of time it took. We expected to be out this by about 6 PM. So we set a call out for 8, saying, you know, that's loads and loads and loads of time. You know, there's only 30 meters of dry cave. That'll take us a couple minutes. But it's so slow going, so sharp, so kind of pointy, so difficult that, you know, it took us quite a lot longer than that. So we had to do a very quick exit without the bottles to cancel the call out and create a new one. And this allowed us to kind of, you know, reevaluate, find a different route. It was actually quite a bit easier, which is up through this little part in the boulder choke, which is not the way we took on the way in, and hand the bottles up and do it. So it actually only took us about half an hour to get everything out, rather than the hour it took to get in. And we are coming out, reaching daylight. And to have some little bit of wisdom, this was my thoughts while leaving.
My phone and key still there?
Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to watch more like it, like and subscribe. Have a good rest of your day.